Welcome, Professor Vogel.
Thank you.
I'm honored to be here with you at AVT Business School in Copenhagen, and you're a distinguished professor of business ethics at Berkeley, and the author of this book here, The Market for Virtue. Can you tell me about today's MBA class at the AVT Business School?
This is a very exciting class to teach. We divide it into two parts. The first part deals with individual business ethics and ethical decision making, how people confront challenges in their own workplace between their personal values and those of the organization. And then the second part, which deals with the themes of the book, deals with global corporate responsibility and how managers address concerns about the environment, human rights, labor conditions, health conditions around the world, and the tensions global firms face between imposing their own Western values on one hand and dealing with the reality of different cultural norms and pressures around the world.
And what are some of the key dilemmas you're seeing in that area?
Well, there are a lot of them. One is the issue of labor standards in developing countries, where there's a big tension between the business model, which is based on low costs, and conditions which improve the welfare of the workers. Corruption is an ongoing pressure, where there's a lot of governments in the world and places where one needs to be corrupt to do business. Human rights is another area where companies may be challenged to not impose or not implement their own human rights policies when they're faced with differences in local pressures. So the world is full of serious challenges that confront global managers.
Yeah, and one of the debates there is CSR good for business, or is it more something you say but you don't really practice in your organization? What's your view on that? Is it good for bottom line profitability?
I think that CSR can provide benefits for companies, particularly in the environmental area, where there's a lot of evidence that companies can lower their costs and create new business opportunities, new markets. So I think that there are many business benefits to CSR and many business risks of bad reputation of not engaging in CSR. Though I still believe that the market still imposes limits on how responsibly companies can behave and still survive in a very competitive global economy.
So are some of the leaders in CSR, in your opinion, not on the stock market, able to make their own autonomous decisions, or?
I think the stock market is a constraint, and quarterly earnings often drive firms to do things they otherwise might not have done. But I think one can even find examples of many publicly traded companies, both in Europe and the United States, which have really been leaders in corporate responsibility and have really done whatever they can to improve conditions in the world.
Yeah, and that's part of the cases you study at an MBA session with you. Can you tell us about some of the companies that are inspiring or that we can learn from, mistakes or
Well, we talk about H&M in the class, and a company which has a pretty good reputation, but also is engaged in some pretty creative efforts to try to improve working conditions in Bangladesh, where the case focuses on. We talk about Yahoo, which has been faced with human rights problems in China, which it didn't handle very well. We have a very inspiring case, which will be the last case in the class, on Merck, which went out of its way to address global health problems, even though it was not profitable for the company.
And famously, Danish producer of clothing, Bestseller Corporation, which is one of the top 5 global clothing manufacturers, are against raising wages in Bangladesh for CSR reasons, citing political problems and inequality problems. How do you view those kind of dilemmas and thinking?
No, I think there are real constraints that companies face, and I think often the solution is to create alliances with other firms and have groups of companies getting together on common standards, common practices, and common codes, which is actually happening among European clothing companies in Bangladesh.
And if I, as a manager, want to advocate a more sustainable business model, what should I guide myself? What is sustainable leadership?
Yeah, my sense is that in the world of business, what you're going to have to do is come up with a business rationale for why the company should do what it's doing, because otherwise you're not going to be responded to. So you have to be creative and say, how can we come up with a rationale, a reason for doing this, even though I want to do it because it's the right thing, but we need to figure out a way of making it, persuading people as to why it's in our business interest. I think also it's very helpful for managers to follow other companies. And there are often cases in which another firm might be doing something which you can learn from and then adopt in your own organization.
So, for the managers today that you're teaching, what would your final piece of advice be for them to be aware of when they re-enter their own organization after learning about this?
I think they need to be aware that public expectations of their companies have fundamentally changed, that the CSR is not a passing fad, it is not going to go away, and they need to figure out ways of responding to public concerns about reputation while at the same time maintaining a viable business model. I think those challenges are important and they're not going away, and I think they're going to remain very central. And I don't think there are any easy answers as to how companies are addressing them, but I do think they need to think about clearly how they're going about meeting those dual challenges.
Well, the title of your book is, or might be, a wordplay with the famous book by Milton Friedman, The Market for Liberty. How do you view Milton Friedman's point of view that the purpose of a company is to create a profit? Is it to create something of virtue or of benefit to humankind? Or?
I think companies have more than one purpose. I think one of the reasons why CSR has become popular among business firms is that managers have come to realize that it is in their business interests. So in that sense, Friedman is sort of one. Everyone sort of agrees with him. Yes, the purpose of business is to make money, but now the twist is, in order to make money in this new world of public expectations, you also need to care about corporate responsibility.
And now you're in a country where we pride ourselves for our sustainability and corporate responsibility. Do you see something different in today's MBA class or with today's students from what you recognize in other places?
I don't see many differences. I think overall MBA students around the world are increasingly adopting and embracing similar concerns, similar values. We live in an increasingly integrated global economy, and I think that MBA students around the world accept the reality that these have become part of the expectations of business and part of what it is to be an effective and responsible manager.
And how do you view, obviously you teach all over the world, how do you view the level that we have here in Copenhagen as opposed to China or the US?
I think there's a very high awareness, particularly of environmental issues, but also of human rights issues here. I'm very impressed by the degree of commitment and concern that Danish students display about the need for companies to address these challenges of global corporate responsibility.
And any final words?
I think this is an ongoing battle. I think there'll always be a gap between what companies would like to do and what society would like companies to do and what they'll actually be doing. That gap will continue as public expectations increase and change, and managers must keep to struggle to try to keep that gap as small as possible.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay.
Thanks.